Hello and welcome to Demian Allan's Astrology and Tarot channel. And if you do like the channel, then please press the subscribe button. This video is going to be about October 2021 and the astrological features that we can expect over that 4-week period. I'm recording this on the 26th of September 2021, and I think we've all survived September. We are now firmly in the grasp of autumn, and the chart that you're looking at the moment is taken from the 1st of October 2021 at midday UK GMT time. So it gives us a real kind of sense of where we're starting the month from. And if we just take a look here, we can immediately see, of course, the sun is in Libra at 8 degrees, and it is closely conjoined by 2 degrees to Mars, which is currently traveling in Libra, and that's problematic. Mars doesn't function well in Libra, and it's combust near the sun, although it's separating from its conjunction, so the conjunction would have really occurred in the last couple of days of September. But certainly Mars can't function very well in Libra at all. It lacks diplomacy. It lacks the ability to see things other people's way. And in fact, interestingly, I did another video on the tarot of the month, and the first card that came up was Adjustment, or the Justice card, which relates to Libra. And Libra is such a diplomatic sign, and it's a sign that can, see other people's point of views. When Mars is in there, it can't. It's backstabbing, and metaphorically speaking, it's things getting really kind of out of hand and passive aggressive energies. Mars cannot function at all. The Mars energy is direct, pushy, aggressive, and could be in a very constructive way. It can't do that in Libra. It just finds it really, really difficult. And I often say this: if you're in a Mars perfected year at the moment, Mars is your planet running your year, then this is a little bit of a tricky period that's going on. And that's really also magnified by, and I talked about this in the last video for September, by Venus in Scorpio. It's at 23 degrees, so it is, coming to the end of its cycle in Scorpio. But again, Venus cannot function well in Scorpio. I talked about it in the last video about September being a difficult month, actually, and a lot coming up to the surface, and certainly that has happened. And Venus, which is the ruler of Libra, so when the sun is going through Libra, of course, Venus is, as I said, it's almost accentuated. It's almost given a kind of starring role to say, right, this is your time to really shine, Venus. It can't in Scorpio. It's find it too difficult, and therefore, again, the whole aspect of arguments of issues surrounding diplomacy, again, being really problematic at this time. And Venus cannot function. It cannot exude its charm that it normally would, and social activities becoming a little bit sort of not quite fallen into place the way you would like it to, or social gatherings. It is at 23 degrees in Scorpio. It's just off the back of separating from a square with Jupiter, meaning that, again, overindulgence in perhaps the frivolous can manifest with Venus squaring Jupiter. It can overindulge here, and Venus, it represents the arts, fashion, the aesthetics, social activities, art galleries, restaurants, all those kind of things. And squaring Jupiter certainly can magnify that, maybe in the news and stuff like that, more than likely the day before, which will be the 30th of September rather than the 1st that we're talking about here. If we also look, we've got on that day, the moon has just crept into Leo about 10 hours before, so we're about early in the morning, you know, I often think that the moon in Leo is not the most comfortable here. You know, the sun rules Leo. The moon can't really do what it likes to do. It feels a bit shy in the zodiac sign of Leo. So already we've got 3 planets that are not functioning particularly well. And I have to relay back to the sun because, you know, the sun does not function really well in Libra. It's in its fall. It can't function. So we've got planets that are not functioning. Now, here's the big one, Mercury. Mercury, oh yes, it's retrograde. It's gone retrograde. Went at the end of last month. And, you know, for the next 3 weeks, we've got a Mercury retrograde in Libra. Okay, so again, the art of diplomacy, of the skill of seeing other people's point of views becoming quite big in the news. But that getting kind of misunderstandings, particularly with legal matters as well, legal documentation, what is legal, what is not legal. These elements over the next 3 weeks are really going to come up in the news here. Or people going into legal battles that won't serve them well on either side, really. So again, the emphasis on this energy of trying to get across your point of view against other people's here, you know, is kind of important. I mean, the thing about this Mercury at the moment is it is trining Jupiter, which kind of helps it. That does help it, but both planets are going retrograde. So is Jupiter and Mercury. So it's a little bit caught in that. And again, legal matters becoming quite important here. I have to say that the biggest legal matters is in relationships here. You know, stuff like what you say, divorce. You know, mortgages. Stuff where couples come together to make a legal binding contract. This may be in the news quite a bit about that, or how we've dealt with that from the past and how we're going to move that forward. There's quite a bit with that sort of coming up here. And I mean, Mercury is comfortable in Libra. You know, it's Libra is an air sign. It's quite happy to be in there. But you know, when it is retrograde, again, that emphasis on the legal is really strong. If we just look at a couple of others, Saturn. Well, Saturn is still retrograde in Aquarius. You can see here it's just off the back of a few trines from the Sun and Mars. Which is quite nice. It's relatively quiet, but you can see, you know, around about that lunchtime, that the moon is going to, you know, around about 1 o'clock on the 1st, 1 o'clock p.m. is going to oppose Saturn. So that might be a tricky one in the news, to do with a female, you know, in the public eye having a bit of a problem, or the authorities going against her, is what probably I would say about that. But also Pluto is squaring Mercury. Remember I talked about Mercury, you know, the trine to Jupiter, which kind of eased it, but now we've got the Pluto again is retrograde, and that square that unearths again legal diplomatic matters up to the surface. You know, stuff that is kind of a bit sort of illegal coming up, or documents not being signed properly in the public eye. Very difficult energy to deal with. But see, if you're born in the last kind of few days, the last 10 days of when the sun is in Libra, you know, that's really kind of quite sort of tricky, you know, from around about sort of October the sort of 13th to the 22nd. Yeah, this is going to be a little tough time in these early few days of October because of that Pluto squaring Mercury. Okay, we'll come to Neptune a bit later on, I'm sure, and Uranus, because the Uranus is they're both retrograde. Uranus at 14 degrees, been 14 degrees for some time in Taurus, and then of course we've got Neptune in Pisces at 21 degrees. You could also see the nodal axis at 3 degrees between Gemini and Sagittarius. And yeah, I've talked about this short distance traveling, long distance traveling. At the moment, it's relatively quiet. So I wouldn't say they were sort of no other planets are really kind of hitting those points that would suggest that they become troublesome in October. But as I say, I'm just going to move this forward here to see what's sort of coming. But it's a little tricky start to it all. Okay. So here we go. This is the 5th. Actually, what I'm going to do is actually going to move it forward a day, because I want to go to the 6th, because you can see here the 6th is the new moon for October, which is going to be, as you can see here, 13 degrees in Libra. Interesting that, because look what you've got here. You've got the moon at 13 degrees. This is at midday on the 6th, the sun at 13 degrees, and then you've got Mars at 13 degrees, all in Libra, joined by, into the fray, a retrograde Mercury. Significant day. Now, most people will say, well, you know, new moons are about new beginnings and a new sense of energy externally manifesting. Yeah, okay, we get that. But this is a tough one, because the planets don't really kind of work at all well in Libra. None of these do. Now let me talk about the moon in Libra. So the moon in Libra is not an actual comfortable position, particularly actually when it gets from 15 degrees in Libra to 15 degrees in Scorpio. It's kind of a no-no for like surgery, stuff like that in the astrology community. And it's at 13 degrees, so it's 2 degrees away from that. But it's conjunct, the sun is in the middle. So the sun has got moon on one side, you know, and the Mars on the other. You know, so the sun is like, well, I can't do anything here. I'm in my fall. I've got the moon that's not really particularly great in Libra, and I've got Mars that's not good in Libra. It cannot function. And plus Mercury is coming in to sort of join the party, and it's a party that no one really wants to be at. And so the 6th is going to be a really kind of messy time. Actually, it's going to be kind of messy. It's going to be, I think that governments are going to try and launch something new manifestos, or not manifestos, but new pledges, and it's really not going to be particularly good. And you know, they're going to think, oh, this is really good, and really it's not. And actually, in the UK, you know, our Prime Minister Boris Johnson, well, he's a Gemini, but he's a Libra rising, so his ascendant has got all of this energy packed into it. So again, you know, this is the spotlight's going to be on him here, but it just feels like it's all wrong. It feels like you know, you always look at the polarity, the opposite sign. That was Aries. It's like launching and you know, legal matters or legal procedures, and people going, what are you doing? And actually being quite aggressive towards it, because the ruler of Aries is in Mars, is in Libra. It cannot function. So you've got all this kind of aggression that's going on. Really very, very difficult. I'm trying to look for any kind of, you know, saviors to this new moon. Okay, here we go. This one's great. So you've got the moon, Mars and the sun at all of 13 degrees. You've got Uranus at 13 degrees, which is a quincunx aspect, an inconjunct, or they're in aversion to each other, depending what kind of astrology you like, modern or traditional. And really, oh my God, you sort of put Uranus in the mix as a kind of like in the background, sort of stirring the pot, not actively involved, but certainly, you know, is uncomfortable. So you've got a rebel in the pack here, you know, just kind of prodding the rest of the Libra planets going, actually, you know what, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Really kind of very uncomfortable, very bumpy ride. Watch out for the 6, lots going on in the news. Lots that's going to be kind of said, or policies that are not going to go well, and legal aspects, particularly, you know, coming out here. I suspect that a lot of this is to do with the health or finances with the health, because the previous sign is obviously Virgo to Libra. So there's a kind of a relationship between the Virgo and the Libra here. And I think that's what, you know, is the financial aspect here. On that day, we got Venus at 28 degrees in Scorpio. So Venus again is still not functioning. Not at all. Not at all. You know, and you've still got that square between Mercury and Pluto. So, oh my, really difficult days, the 6. Very interesting, but boy, it's gonna be a little tough, that. And most people, as I say, the new moon is like, oh, it's all positive. This one is not a positive new moon. It's not positive. I can't see any positives coming from it. I even want to say even Chiron's in the mix as being opposing it. Okay, all the planets are separating, but it's only by 3 degrees. So even Chiron's in there, you know, it's pretty dreadful. I mean, you know, this is more for people in the public eye, remember. I think if you're a Libran, you know, you've got a Libran rising or a Libra sun, or even if you're a Libra moon, you might find it's a bit of a tricky period for you, you know, just trying to deal with this particular energy. Okay, I think we should move on swiftly to perhaps when it will get a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to move into the start of the second half of October, from October the 10th here, and we start to see maybe things kind of, you know, starting to certainly move slightly forward. First of all, the sun is now at 70 degrees. Remember, the sun is faster in movement than Mars, so it's gonna take over. But look at this. You've got Mercury and Mars, so they're in conjunct with each other. So again, that Martian passive aggressiveness that's kind of going to be dominating, and the legal aspects are still very much around at this time. Here's the little bit of the saving grace, is that Venus has now moved into Sagittarius. Venus is all right in Sagittarius. It's not exalted, it's not in its fall, it's not in its rulership, but you know, it kind of like Sagittarius. It's fun. It can you know, push the energy to maybe the arts abroad, or educational aspects, and art, and Venusian subject matters. You know, it can be quite nice there. You've got the moon on that day in Sag as well, that's coming in. More importantly, what it's doing over that, you know, the 9th and the 10th is Venus is going over the nodal axis, so it's going over the south node and opposing the north node. So, you know, I've said about, you know, movement. So this could be and this is in Sagittarius, south node. So it could be an issue with a little issue with a country that's kind of, you know, got a lot of Venus energy to it. I think Italy is one of those, you know, that actually is a little bit problematic, or a little bit of an issue there. South node tends to be stuff from the past here, but it's nothing to write home about too much. But you know, the focus might be on sort of traveling abroad, you know, and how that kind of manifests and stuff like that. It poses a north node here. So, but again, I'm not going to put too much emphasis. The Venus is sort of quite weak in Sagittarius. You know, it is also making a sextile aspect with Saturn. So it's not a big player in this. This is all a big player, all this Libran energy, this dance between these planets of Mercury, Mars, and the Sun. That's the big news, and sort of remains here, you know. And Pluto sort of striking fourth, and so is Uranus. I wanted to talk about Neptune in Pisces. I've often, you know, we've had Neptune in Pisces since 2011, and it's definitely contributed to a sort of smoke and mirrors attitude, and escapism and particularly with advertising and the illusionary aspect of society, it's definitely played into. And you know, Neptune's been relatively quiet of late. You know, it's hanging around the last decan of Pisces, and it's at 21 degrees going backwards. You know, so there is kind of a general feeling that you know, it's just quietly maneuvering in the background, ready to strike here, and that obviously comes in really at the end of the year and the beginning of 2022, when Jupiter goes into Pisces, and obviously will make a conjunction with Neptune. Then you've got those two planets really kind of dominating an awful lot, actually, and actually liking each other. And you know, if they were in a bar together, they would definitely, Jupiter and Neptune would get very, very drunk with each other. But that's messy and probably not good for other people. But so it's quietly in the background. Remember that quiet, you know, the quiet before the storm, I would say, with that. Okay, I want to sort of move on because you know, we've got a couple of big things starting to happen, and the main one is sort of around the 12th is this planet here, which is Saturn. So Saturn begins to move forward, begins to go direct. And I think this is really kind of important, particularly if you're in a Saturn profected year. You know, Saturn you know, has been retrograde since May, so you're going to kind of benefit from this, all you guys under a Saturn perfected year. And I just feel like this is going to help a lot of people, actually, this moving forward, a lot of people, because it to me, Saturn retrograde is pretty awful. It hasn't really hit that many planets apart from the continuing square with Uranus, but you know, it's a little wide orb, really. It has been, but yeah. So Saturn moves forward. So that's really kind of good news. Again, I mean, this is the 13th, so I think it starts to move on the 12th. If you look at the 13th again, you know, look at that Mars and the Sun. Mars at 18 degrees, Sun at 20 degrees, and then Mercury has gone all the way back to 12 degrees now. So again, you know, it's still making that quincunx aspect with Uranus. That's a little bit on the crazy side here. So Mercury, all forms of communication, social media, TV, transport, short distance traveling, all of this really comes under the rulership. You know, you've got a little bit of the Joker syndrome here with Uranus making a quincunx aspect to Mercury, or being inversion to it. So very, very difficult. On that day, of course, on midday, you've got the moon making a conjunction to Pluto. So it could be a bit of a heavy day that's taking place here. Okay, so yeah, Saturn moving forward. That's good news for a lot of people. And let's just move forward, because we've got one other thing that's also happening here that we can see. This is on the 18th. Jupiter's also moving forward. So we've got the two societal planets that rule society, which is Saturn and Jupiter, moving forward. Remember, Jupiter's been retrograde since the last week, around about the 3rd week of June. So again, if you're in a Jupiter perfected here, suddenly things will start to get moving for you. You know, if Jupiter has been hanging around sensitive areas in your chart on an angle, ascendant, midheaven, IC, descendant, then things will get moving. Quite as significant when you've got those two societal planets starting to move forward. That's when things start to look like, right, okay, we all kind of know where we might be going here. You know, as long as we be just aware of listening to other people's opinions, taking them on board. We've still got that stellium planets in Libra, and those stellium planets are not working well. They're not doing what they should do. So you've got to remember that. You know, but Jupiter is trining. It trines, it's slightly separating, but it trines Mars. It's applying a trine to the Sun. Yeah, this for me, this feels, I'll tell you what, this feels more like the new moon that we should have had earlier but sort of didn't. Is what I would say here. And we'll talk about, you know, the full moon coming up, because you can see that it's coming as the moon on that day, midday on the 18th of October, has just gone into Aries. Okay, so that's a very significant day, the 18th. Things kind of move forward. Things look a little bit better. Then we come, I can get this pretty right. Yeah, we come to the 20th, which is going to be the full moon. So the full moon is actually going to be at 27 degrees of the polarity of Libra and Aries. The full moon is going to be 27 degrees. Okay, so yeah, Aries full moons. Aries full moons are contradictory in nature, because full moons are typically about endings or things being illuminated, things come into light. And Aries symbolizes new beginnings, so you can see that the contradiction coming in here. So it will feel like a new moon, but it will also feel like a full moon, but it's quite volatile, because the moon it's okay in Aries, but it is a bit volatile, it is a bit temperamental, it is a bit volcanic in that nature, and so therefore, you know, it doesn't bode so well. And obviously you've got Mars making a conjunction to the polarity between the sun and the moon here. Mars is still at 23 degrees in Libra. You know, I can't stress how much this Mars in Libra is causing a whole load of problems. Because Mars is the planet that gets things done, and if it can't get things done in the zodiac sign, and everything else tends to stagnate or spiral a bit out of control. You know, so it's again a tricky kind of energy. On that day, you've got an inconjunct between, or quincunx between, Venus and Uranus that's taking place. But again, I'm not going to go too much into that here. The good news is that Saturn and Jupiter are moving forward, so they'll be gathering pace. I often use the analogy of when a planet starts to go forward, it's like when you get on a train and it leaves a train station, it doesn't go, you know, 100 miles an hour straight away. It takes its time, you know. So you have to be patient with the planets, is what I'm trying to say here. But yeah, you've still got the dominance. You've still, you know, got this energy of Mars. Here is the kind of the good news that's sort of taking place. It happened on the sort of 18th, but we're into the 20th now. Mercury starts to move forward. Remember I used the train analogy just a second ago? Yeah, okay. So it's starting to move forward. It's going to be the shadow period for the next couple of weeks, so just bear that in mind, but it is moving forward. But it's moving forward towards Mars. Mars is the planet that's causing a lot of these problems here. As soon as Mars goes into Scorpio, which is right, or actually on Samhain, on Halloween, suddenly Mars is functioning really well. But you know, it's just getting there really. So yeah, so it's still very tricky. It's tricky energy. It'll feel, I suppose, from a collective, quite bitey in a way. You know, people lose their tempers over little silly things. Really. Also, you know, kind of the Mars, I sometimes look at the weather and stuff like that. It could be a very unpredictable weather and weather patterns when Mars Libra, not quite how we would like it to be. Okay, let's just move forward. I just want to move to 25th here. We can see that this is now the sun is in Scorpio, so we're in that period when everything's kind of the veil between the two worlds that is finished. You know, we tend to go into ourselves in the northern hemisphere, retreat from the world. On the trees, we can see, well, quite frankly, death, isn't it? You know, the leaves falling off the trees, going into the ground to re-emerge in spring. We're in a period where, shall I say, it's about re-examination. It's about looking for that light within us, and it's a basic survival aspect when the sun is in Scorpio. You know, people who are born with the sun in Scorpio, very, very good, you know, very good at very good at surviving and have strong survival skills, actually. You know, I'm not just talking about from practical level, from emotional point of view level. You know, this time of year everything can look a bit bleak. You know, you need to really stay strong and focused on what's important in life. If we look at this again, Mars continues to be in Libra. It's at 26 degrees. It's come to the end. Hooray. We got Venus at 19 degrees, you know, in Sagittarius, and it's making a square aspect with Neptune. Neptune has a little hello towards the end of October, where, you know, issues to do with Venus occupations, the service industry, stuff like that, you know, hairdressing stuff have a bit of maybe a little issue, or there's a bit of issue in the news about that. Restaurants, stuff like that, you know, little issue will come up there. We can see that Mercury is now moving forward at 13 degrees. Slowly, that train is really taking its time to leave the station on the Mercury train, but is moving forward here. Okay, I'm going to go straight to the last day, you know, for all you kind of magical people out there. October the 31st, here, Samhain. Those, for me, Samhain from an astrological point of view is always when the sun is at 15 degrees in Scorpio, and that normally happens around about the 5th or 6th, between the 5th, 6th, maybe the 7th of November, depending on which year it is. But anyway, you can see here that the sun is at 8 degrees in Scorpio, therefore it's not 15 degrees. But anyway, this is where we put that energy out there, and we can see on that day, the good news is that Mars is now in Scorpio. I like Mars in Scorpio. I prefer Mars in Scorpio to Mars in Aries, actually. In some ways, it kind of cools it down a little bit here. It's a great for working with Mars energy at this time now. Mars can actually function. It can do a lot. It will be in November, and in the next video I'll talk about that, you know, making an opposition with Uranus, which will be fun. But generally speaking, we're out that kind of both sides of the coins, passive aggressive, trying to keep the balance, trying to get that diplomacy working, not really working. We're out of that. We're now into, you know, territory where Mars can actually operate a decent level. And we can see there that, you know, Mercury is now at 21 degrees in Libra. You know, it's making a quincunx with Neptune, or just has off the back, but also more importantly, it's trining Jupiter. That's really kind of nice. I love it when Mercury does trine Jupiter in air signs. I think that's lovely. You know, for the moon is in Virgo, so we started off in Leo, we ended it at the beginning of the month in Leo, we ended it in the moon in Virgo, which puts the emphasis on health sectors actually quite a bit here. I think this end bit is quite nice. I think the first couple of weeks, you know, that first 10 days of October is pretty difficult, actually. I do think it gets a bit better as we go on. I just think that new moon energy is pretty awful. But from the 20th, I do think after the full moon, I do think it gets like a little bit easier, or it feels like it's getting easier here. I would say that mainly in the news, a lot is going to be about transport. You know, trains, buses, short distance traveling, not planes, but transport. That's because of the mercurial aspect here, and all the planets that are hitting in Libra as well. Legal contracts through transports or stuff like that really coming up to the news, I feel, is going to be quite significant. I suppose the big question is October going to be easier than September? It is. September feels like everything's just come into this real kind of fear. I think that was going to continue in October, and I think it will balance out as we get closer to the end of October. And then, of course, we're in November, and that November is always tricky energy to deal with on an energetic basis. But anyway, lots to go on, and I just feel like you know, we live in interesting times, and this is the period. October could always be, autumn could always be a little bit of a tricky month. for a lot of people. But remember, we have to kind of clear the clutter before we build again. And I think that's the mantra that we should be all using. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed that video. Please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel for more videos. Anyway, I'll see you next month, all of you. Thank you very much.